Coming up in just a second, we have the Wednesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. I am Buddy Martin. This program is heard Monday through Thursday evening and on Sunday morning with the Orange and Blue Bloods. Tonight on the program, it's David MOULTON night. Plenty to talk about with David on the national picture, the SEC. We have a comment from the head coach of the Florida Gators, Billy Napier, and a trip down memory lane. A very special friend and a classmate of mine in journalism having a special event this weekend, and I want to introduce you to my friend George. Stay tuned. Coming up right now, it's the Buddy Martin Show. Tell your friends and neighbors we're on the air right now.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the program. I'm Buddy Martin. It's going to be an interesting show tonight because we got something going on. A little bit of blood in the water, a little bit of buzz, a little bit of scuttlebutt. Help me figure it out. Gather around. Let's see if we can figure out what is going on around the Gator Nation tonight. Something big is about to pop. I don't know what it is, but I know something's going on. Tonight, I want to say happy birthday to my grandson, Alexander. Alexander is 15 years old tonight. Alexander Gregory just got back from a quick dinner. I don't usually go out on nights like this. Didn't even go to the quarterback club tonight. Here, my friend. We instead went to the dinner. So happy birthday to Alexander. We'll wish you many more, 15 years old. It's going to be a good one. All right, so folks, on the program tonight, let's start with the scuttlebutt. Something big is about to go down. The reason I know is I've heard it from two very good sources who don't know either, but they know something big is about to happen. I can't be precise. I do know this. Anytime a guy like Hugh Hathcock starts tweeting, you better pay attention. This was his tweet tonight. Tomorrow will be a great day, Gator fans. I mean, this guy's got more money than whoever, and he's going to make something pop. I'm not sure what or how much it'll be, but something's going on. So maybe you guys might know, may have an idea. It's fun to guess, and we'll continue to talk about that tonight on the program and see if we can. We need Sherlock Holmes here. Who's a good Sherlock? Dan Bond is usually pretty good. We got somebody who's digging around what they're hearing. Could be recruiting related. It might not. It could be NIL. I don't know. But we'll start with that. In just a minute, we're going to hear from the head coach, Billy Napier, who has a press conference on the injury situation, on the experience situation, and some of the players he's got on his team. He's very pleased. He had a good workout, military day today. They heard from an officer or sergeant, I'm not sure which one it was, and he wants to honor the military this week. And senior day. Do you know how many seniors there are? Do you know who they are? And I had to look them up and realize there's some guys that contributed a long time around here who will walk on Saturday. So that's going down. And then Friday, I'll be going down to the University of Florida Journalism School to a big deal. It is for me and it is for my friend's family. George Solomon, you might have heard him speak here before. He'll be on the show tonight, a tape interview. Former sports editor of the Washington Post and a really well-known guy in our business. He will be at the University of Florida luncheon on Friday with his son and grandson. His son happens to be Aaron Solomon, in his own right, pretty well known, the producer of Around the Horn for 19 years. And his grandson, Bennett, who is going to be a junior this year, is a junior in journalism. So 3 generations of Solomons, all in the media. And so we'll talk about that. And my son, Brendan, and I are going to meet him on Friday. I've got 2 daughters and a son who all majored in journalism. And Brendan is, of course, driving the bus here in these days. So that's coming up as well. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and hear from our sponsor. We come back, we're going to hear our first bite from, let's go ahead and hear Billy. Let's do this. Let's hear Billy's comments today, talking about injuries and talking about players, how much better they are if they get 1 year in first, and then the second year is when they start improving. Let's hear from Billy Napier.
Maybe an oversimplistic view that you play young guys, they take their lumps, but they're automatically going to be better next year for doing it. What's your philosophy on that? And is having a bad experience as a freshman detrimental to where they are as a sophomore if they're not fully ready to?
It's a great question, I think, and it's really about the perspective of that individual, right? I think if you have the right attitude and approach, you're always learning, right? But I always have believed that the most improvement in a player's career comes after the first year of significant time, right? Because now, I know what it's going to be like, right? So my entire offseason reflects, I know exactly what I'm getting into. When you haven't played before, you're training, but you don't really understand when I walk between the lines what exactly that's going to look like. So we've got a lot of guys that are getting their first significant experience. And you see individual improvement throughout the season, but I just really think it gets magnified with now, okay, hey, I've got an opportunity, 8-9 months of prep to get ready to do it again. Not only working physically, but mentally, and then I have experience so I can affect other players. And I think it's a great question and one that I'm hopeful, a lot of these young players will benefit from.
Just a few more for the coach. How has Shorter progressed since last week after missing the game just with the hamstring?
He's been modified in practice. He's been able to do some things where we've kind of got him on a pitch count. He's still questionable at this point in time. We'll see where he's at to tomorrow. But he has done work. He's worked yesterday, worked today. We're just keeping a close eye on him there and trying to control the volume. Yeah, Frazier's has got a pretty significant shoulder. He's out.
With him and possibly Justin, who kind of needs to step up there?
No, we'll probably you're going to see Burke more. You'll see Caleb Douglas, obviously, and then we're going to get our best players on the field ultimately. So the depth goes. The depth chart reflects kind of who will have an opportunity.
How impressed have you been with Caleb Douglas's progression, just from a guy who wasn't playing wide receiver to now being somebody who can really contribute and even score for you guys?
Yeah, no, I think Caleb still a lot left there. I think he's a good young player that has he has the traits, he has the movements, he has the intangibles. I think his skill level is still developing. But I think he's got the right makeup, and certainly he'll benefit from the experience. But talking about a guy that played quarterback up until a couple games into that junior year, so I think he's got the traits to develop there. Casey's done a nice job with him, and I see him up here all the time. I mean, he's the right kind of kid.
All right, Billy Napier there sizing up the situation, talking about his receivers. They're not going to have Frazier's or Shorter, which is significant. So the guys he mentioned, Caleb Douglas, one of them, looks like he might be a guy they'll be counting on. So, So, all right. So let me just say, first of all, welcome tonight to everybody before we go to break. Glad to see you aboard. Tell your friends and neighbors we are here. I know it's a difficult night for a lot of people with the cold. I hope you're going to be safe. We're expecting wind up here tonight and after midnight, probably 2 or 3 in the morning. In Ocala area, and we up to 70 miles an hour. We're hoping we don't get any trees down or whatever, because that's always dangerous. We wish all you the best, buckle up. This is not a big hurricane in terms of velocity, but it's a big hurricane in terms of tropical storm. It covers a lot of territory. So a lot of the coastline's been eaten up by already in the Atlantic side. And so these are tough storms, and they do a lot of damage. So main thing is to be careful and be safe out there. If you have a doubt, get up and go someplace or somebody else's house or get a hotel room. What are you going to do? Don't stay if it's heading your way because it's dangerous. All right? I want to say that. And I want to say good evening to my daughter, Rebecca, up in Pennsylvania. How are you? Queenie Kwanda Arnold is in tonight. Queenie, nice to hear from you. Terry Johnson, good evening to you. Facebook user, that would be Van Der. That's what he goes by, Facebook. Van, yeah, I know you. Nice to hear you back. Betsy Smith Carlisle, sometimes she's first in. Good evening to you. Toby Parmenter, good to see you back, Toby. Thanks for listening and contributing. Harold Evers says, greetings from Miami. Nicole ain't getting the best of us. Canes blow. Well, good luck to you about all that. I hope the hurricane you're talking about is not the Miami ones, but that's okay. You can come here and talk too, as long as you're respectful. Russ Summers, good evening to you. Howard Lovering from the Pipeline, hello to you. Be careful. Dakota Emily, go Gators from East Tennessee. I hope Jordan Pouncey gets to play some Saturday and balls out. Yeah, Jordan's one of the ones. There's 18 of them. What senior comes to your mind when you talk about senior day? What one person did you most appreciate? And Joshua Humphrey, in taking a note from what I said earlier, something's going down tomorrow, according to the big boys. He says this. He says, buddy, Josh from Mississippi, on Edgar's podcast of the day, he was talking about him sitting next to someone close to AR and his family on the plane ride back to Florida, and that person said AR is likely coming back and that his mom and others around him don't think he's ready to go, want him to finish school, but don't want him to be thrown to the wolves just yet in the NFL. Have you had similar thoughts? Well, if you listen to this show, I was one of the first ones to say a couple of weeks ago, Anthony Richardson, if he could somehow swing it, he could come back and sleep in his own bed in his own hometown, and he's plenty of money, and his life would be. You never have as much fun as you do in college, and he's got his groove on right now. He's playing better. He's learning. And again, as Shane argues with me, no, if he's a first rounder, he's got to go. He's got to go and experience. I say, well, go and what? Sit for 3 years like Kyle Trask? I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a quarterback of the Florida Gators, especially when you can maybe knock out a couple of $1 million. So that's my own personal choice, but some people say, well, let him go, move on to the next quarterback. I say he's generational talent. If he'd like to come back, I guarantee you there's a way to get him protected so that if he gets hurt, he'll be a rich man the rest of his life if that happens. You hope it doesn't, but hey, it's not my life and my money, so it's easy for me to say. I sure hope you consider, because if he comes back and he has a good experience, which I think he will because he seems happy now, he could end for a great year there, and also a team that could be competitive, and he could have some fun. But that's me. It's not my money and my life. That's just a thought. Let's take a break, and we're going to come back here from George Solomon, famous journalist. And George says what he thinks to say. As we go down memory lane, hope you don't get too bored. And then we got our special guest tonight here, which we like to feature, David Moulton, sponsored by Titan MRI. So, yeah, for sure. We'll be right back after this message from my friends at Jeffrey Melvin's law firm.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit? At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Meldon Law sponsors the Florida Gators. There's a lot of good things here. Go to their website, or better yet, go to their Facebook page, Meldon Law. Giving away stuff all the time. Your chance, Meldon Law. As he says, they won't back down. All right. Earlier today, I had a chance to visit with George Solomon, who he and his family are being honored Friday at the University of Florida School of Journalism and Communications. George and I go back to, we actually did go to class together way back in the day. Here's part of that interview. My great pleasure now to talk to my good friend and longtime, well, colleague. We worked in the same business, but not in the same place. George Solomon, a renowned journalist who will be honored this weekend. He and his sons at the University of Florida Journalism and Communications, and he'll be in the press box where we both started many years ago. George, we were just kids then.
Well, buddy, we can go down memory lane for hours that'll bore your audience, but hopefully we won't do that.
Yeah.
But we did meet at the University of Florida in the fall of 1958. And that's a long time ago. The coach was Bob Woodruff.
You thought football was dull under some of these other coaches? You don't know dull. I mean, third down punts, and it was just brutal. And you were working in the SID's office. Jimmy Gay was the guy who was in charge, and you worked down, as I recall, for Jimmy, where you already started your journalism career at Miami Beach and working for the local paper there. When you got there, you had a little experience. So those were the days, George, when 5-5 in the bowl game was a pretty good season.
Well, it was, buddy, but and they had some good football players whom you remember, Jimmy Dunn, Bob Milby, and a lot of good guys. And Val Heckman, you remember him?
First All-American, really.
Don Fleming. They were good players.
They were.
And it was a different game. It was a different era. But it was something that that started us all. And, I was working for Jimmy Gay at the Sports Information Office. And I also was a stringer for the Miami News, which was one of my hometown papers.
Yeah.
And it was the beginning of a great 5 years at the University of Florida. I was redshirted 1 year, thanks, but it was a great college experience.
Yeah, and you're right. And as I thought about this interview the last couple of days, and folks, I'm sorry, you're going to have to cut me some slack today because this is a special occasion for me to go back to our roots where George and I met. And George had an illustrious career, which we'll get into in a minute, as did his son, and now maybe his grandson will be next, in the Solomon dynasty, which I call it. And George, I thought about this. I owe University of Florida so much in my life. But this is not about me. This is about you. I want you to tell me how you feel about that subject, and then I will talk about it because you had a part in impacting my life and my marriage and so on. I'll tell people. But talk to me about what University of Florida, and it's okay to gush a little bit. It's okay this is your school. We don't have to be objective journalists. Talk to me about University of Florida and what it means.
Buddy, you and I had the same professors in the College of Journalism. And the two I'll mention most prominently, you're very familiar with as well, Hugh Cunningham and Buddy Davis, neither of whom are alive today. But Hugh Cunningham was this wonderful, supportive, great professor. And I later became a professor at the University of Maryland, which Cunningham would laugh. But we also had a guy named Buddy Davis who would poke at us, and he would poke at everybody, and he would poke at your work, but he made you better. And, there are a lot of things about Buddy Davis I wish he was still here for us to reminisce about. But he was a great professor as well. And, that was a great springboard to our careers. The dean was Ray Weimer. The college's building is named for him, and Weimer Hall. And he was a great dean. And, from the University of Florida, you and I both moved on, and we had good, careers, and careers that we can be proud of. And, but I still love the University of Florida College of Journalism in particular. My son, Aaron, graduated in 1991, I believe it was. And Aaron's been the coordinating producer of the television show Around the Horn on ESPN for incredibly 20 years. And his son, Bennett, my grandson, is a junior in the College of Journalism, works for ESPN Gainesville, and, and next year will be a senior. So that's three Solomons in the College of Journalism.
Dynasty. That's wonderful. And there'll be a luncheon. I'll be there, by the way, with my son. We don't have a dynasty in the Martin family, although Brendan, my son, is the president of my company and does all this technical stuff, whatever. So George, this is a terrific occasion for you. Congratulations to you and Aaron and Bennett. Bennett had a cup of coffee with us last fall and decided he had other things he wanted to do, and I know he'll do well, whatever he chooses to do. I just wanted to say, getting back to Buddy Davis and Hugh Cunningham, I'll share a couple quick stories. But Hugh Cunningham was my savior. I would have dropped out 100 times had it were not for Hugh, who kept encouraging me, and I know he did you as well. Buddy Davis was another story. He was a terror. He was a holy terror, and one of the things he hated, George, I used to write for the Alligator and submit my stuff to the class, and he put it up on that screen, and he'd rip you apart when you put your stuff up there. And he said every time I didn't mention the name of the sport, he'd give me a letter grade off because I didn't mention what sport it was. Well, when you name the players in the basketball, Cliff Luke and all these guys, you kind of know who it is. No, I don't know if this is tennis or football, whatever. Drove me crazy with this. Name the sport. So I got to think, Florida won a football game today, period, whatever, and I really hated that. But you know what? Years later, I found out, he might have been right about that. Today, it'd be nice. Every now and then I read a story, I don't know what sport it is. I think, what the? And I think of Harrence Davis, his name was. He was something else, wasn't he?
Well, not only that, but, in days that followed, you and I both added this sport in many, many, many stories. So his memory lingered. Yeah. And he was right. And he was a great professor. He wasn't as encouraging as Hugh Cunningham.
Ooh, was he?
But
Opposite.
he was wonderful. And he won a Pulitzer Prize for editorial writing at the Gainesville Sun. So not only was he a great professor and a great teacher, he was also a great editorial voice.
No doubt about it. And also, I would say, I never forgave him for giving me a letter grade like a D on a course that I took from him. I had an A- going to the final examination, and we had an open book final. He says, the final grade won't count on your grade. Well, I got my grades, and he dropped me from an A to a D. And I walked in, Mr. Davis, how can you do this? You said it didn't count. Well, I just couldn't give you a passing grade. I was so mad, I quit school, went home back to Ocala. How about it? I felt betrayed. I was going to give up the business, And I'll say this, it really made me angry. Then one day, Ray Weimer talked to my dad, who was in journalism, and said, tell Buddy to come back, take that course over again, keep his mouth shut, all right? Which I came back, and I did, and I took the course, I made an A. And the next summer, Buddy Davis took two of us to Atlanta as an intern. Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Buddy worked there this summer. We had a great summer learning all about what it was like in a big city, and Buddy Davis did that. So that's what I remember. Too much about me, more about George. George, you had a phenomenal run at the Washington Post. You were the columnist for a long time. You forget at the Washington Daily News. You covered the team that was called the Redskins, heavily involved in that point in time, did a lot of writing. And then you had the opportunity to go to the Post, and you wound up being assistant sports editor. And one day they crowned you and made you sports editor. And you have one of the great runs in newspaper history there as sports editor of the Washington Post. And I just say, I'm proud of you, what you did, the quality of the people's work. Your writers were phenomenal. You had arguably one of the great stables of writers and columnists I've ever known.
Well, if nothing else, Buddy, I could recognize a good writer and a good reporter and a good person.
All right, thanks very much. That's George Solomon. He is the former sports editor of the Washington Post. I won't play the rest of the interview because I know most of you are going to sleep. But hey, for us, it was a great conversation. George, of course, again, will be honored this week as the it's unusual to have three generations of anybody going to the same school and getting their degrees and being in media and being in a big way. So it's great catching up with George and appreciate him being on with me. So tonight we're talking about who was your favorite senior. And, I had to think about it because I couldn't really remember who all the seniors were. There's a significant amount of people. I'm going to read this list off because these people all contributed mightily to this program over the years. and it's their last home game is senior day. There'll be a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth and crying and celebrating, whatever. But I started thinking about who all on this list. Some people on here I didn't expect to. There's some people I'm sorry to see go who never got a chance to really show what they could do. But here's the list. See if you can pick out one and tell me, and tell me what you think about it. One is Jack Anders. Now, I got to confess to you, I don't even remember Jack Anders. Do you? Remember who he was and what he did? I don't. Jack Anders. So there you go. I wasn't paying very good attention then, apparently. And so after that, Jack Brady. You know Jack Brady? Have you heard of him? Justin Curtis, another one. There's three right there I know little or nothing about. Now here's a guy who has been much maligned, and yet he's played, 6 years almost? At least 5. And he's given the best he had to give, and he's a good young man. Trey Dean. Trey Dean hadn't always been treated kindly. I'd just like to say thank you, Trey, for your contributions and what you did. Kyle Engel. Richard Garage has really been a force as an offensive lineman. He really gave himself. And during the Muller regime, he was a key guy, and he was developed during that time. And Richard has had a really good run and a leader. Travis Freeman, I don't know much about him. Will Harrod. Noah Keeter. Remember he had in spring, I was thinking, he had a big game. Noah Keeter, wow. He's going to play some this fall. He can play tight end. Guess what? We've hardly seen him, right? Lorenzo Lingard finally got in to run the ball a couple of times. Lorenzo is a 5-star, remember? And he's already gotten off the bench. So, but he's been a classy guy. He's handled it really well. So I wish him all the best. You wish he could have done more, had a chance. Ventrell Miller, my gosh, what can you say about this guy? He's been a mountain of a man. He's been a dog, as they say, right? An alpha dog, as a matter of fact. And in that last game, he showed the value of a man who would stand up and get his team to play better. And they certainly did that in Texas A&M. And Ventrell was one of the leaders who talked about that. Ventrell got his team playing. Jordan Pouncey, another one of the Pounceys. Didn't see Jordan a lot there. William Sawyer, not much out of William. Justin Shorter, you heard Billy talking about him earlier. Justin Shorter is hurt. He won't get to play that much. He's on a so-called pitch count. So we won't see him much this weekend. Chase Whitfield, Tyler Waxman, again, two guys I know a little about. And here are two guys I do want to talk about because Trent Whittemore, I still don't know what happened to Trent Whittemore. We get lots of questions about Trent because I expected him to have a big year. Whatever happened, maybe he didn't have the speed the new coaches wanted. I don't know. I thought he was a really athletic guy and a guy who could have been kind of a hybrid tight end, wide receiver. Great hands, baller, great kid, made good grades. His family, his dad's a high school coach, his brother, Creed, was committed, and suddenly one day he wasn't, and we kind of began to think, well, that's going to be it for Justin, and now senior day, he's taking a walk on Saturday, so all the best to Trent Whittemore. I got to know him during the time he was a nominee and ultimately won a Scott Brantley Trophy, which is awarded by the Ocala Quarterback Club for not just football, but also leadership and his faith and academics and what have you. That's the kind of kid he was. I expected him to have a bigger year. I'm really sorry he didn't, and I look forward to seeing him play wherever he goes with his brother Creed. And Naquan Wright, wasn't it just yesterday we were talking about this guy? What a great guy he was, and France talked about him being a good possession receiver and how he might get in the slot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that didn't happen. So you wonder sometimes, people come through and they're there and then they're not there and they're gone. You think, whatever happened to that guy, right? Whatever happened to that guy? And we will wonder about some of those guys right there. But I think what we need to do is make sure we say thank you for all these, to all these young men, for their contributions and what they've done and et cetera. So we'll just say thank you for that. Okay, let's see if my notes went away on my page here. Let's see. Obviously, this weekend, it's a big weekend for Florida. It'll be a sold-out Swamp, Senior Day. Got a couple of injuries. They need to step up and see if they can't make something. They need this win. In his press conference today, Billy said a funny thing. He was asked about, is it important to win this game and finish out and win the next two? And then he said, that's not how we think. He never wants to get past where he is right now. Now, you know he wants, because we talked about this the other night. Best case scenario, this could be an 8-win team. Shane and I said before the season started, 7 wins would be a really terrific season. And then what would 8 be? Well, 8 would be remarkable. But think about this, and I know I'm reaching here, and I know it may not happen, but think about the possibilities. I'm going to talk to Coach Spurrier tomorrow morning. We're going to talk about the really good teams that didn't win championships, and there were some good ones. Two of Steve's were his 92 and 97 team. And they were really good, but they didn't win championships. Sometimes your best teams, Steve told me today, don't win championships, some of your best teams. So, so consequently, you don't always win when you think you're going to, and it doesn't work out that way. But this team has got a chance now. If they can battle it, they're 9-point favorites, maybe a little less since they came up with injuries to Frazier's and Shorter, maybe 7.5 or 8 in the swamp. South Carolina got a little razzle-dazzle. They can beat you on special teams. Fully frank, both Shane and I think that Florida's a much better team, will prevail. And here they go. Guess what? They're bowl eligible. There was a time when you'd laugh at comments like that, being bowl eligible. What's that big deal? We're talking national championships and Eastern Division titles. And whatever, you're bowl eligible? What is that? Well, it's significant in this case because of the team being so young with a new coach and so many players that they want to see. And they get 15 days extra practice this way. And that goes a long way toward building this program. So anyway, I just want to say that. And also I want to say Amari Burney is also on that list. And he did overlook today. He's walking apparently. And here's a guy who leads a team in sacks, interceptions. What a phenomenal year he's had. He's really been, he made key plays in lots of games. And Amari Burney was an outstanding year. Didn't get very much notice. So good luck to him. Good luck to all the seniors and all that kind of stuff and what have you. All right, so coming up, we've got David Moulton, and we're going to talk about some of the coaches, all the coaches around, who the ones that we think might be in most jeopardy. We talked about it some last night. Then we're going to talk about the rankings, beginning to get important now. If nothing else, it gets important because Florida's opponents, FSU now is ranked. So Florida will be, if they beat FSU, this obviously is a feather in Florida's cap. But again, the 4 teams they've lost to, and in those games they were in all of them at one point, and could have won a couple, all ranked. Does that mean anything? Well, look at South Carolina's schedule. What's their best win? So we'll be able to tell really how good this team was based on not just their record, but based on also how their opponents did. And they have some really good opponents. They had a tough schedule. And the team, if you hear Billy's press conference tonight, which I just did, he's starting to get a little confidence. He wants to see his team put 4 quarters together. They've had good halves and good quarters, what have you. They played good on defense the last 2 games in the second half. They haven't turned the football over, which is all part of the grand plan. These are elements. But he also said after the game, we come out here, we run, we lift weights, whatever, but there's also the human element. And it's that human element that makes a team. And that's what we're talking about here when Billy talks about, what he's dealing with there. So, yeah, all that. I just want to read a couple of these, and we'll wait for David Moulton to join us. Terry Johnson, thank you to the seniors. Says, Sissy Long, thanks for the comment about the interview. Facebook user, which I think is Durr, I'm not sure. I appreciate them all being the seniors. The ones who played a lot and the ones who didn't play at all. Very good point. It takes a whole unit like that to make the squad up. You have more than just 1 or 2 players. You have to have a roster. And a team and a roster is very important. And then Paul Neesmith says, what's up? We'll be at the game this weekend. Go Gators. Okay. How many of you go in the game? Raise your hand. It'll be a sold-out crowd. So all that going on, too. All right, so we'll do this. We'll tell you about our friends at Rinstar Medical Research, and David Moulton will be joining us in just a minute, and we'll hear one more comment, and then we'll go right into our second half of our program and tell you about our Titan MRI hotline as well. Let's do this. Let's hear from the Titan MRI people again. We'll do that. Jeff Cardoza, and then we'll come back and we'll see if we get a hold of David Moulton.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
All right, Titan MRI sponsored the Shane Matthews Show as well. Thanks for their sponsorship. Let me also tell you about my friends at Rinstar Medical Research. Rinstar, they're well noted in this community as a staunch supporter of the community. They happen to be Gator fans, and Joe Sorrentino's son, in fact, paid for the Gators, and Urban Meyer. They're also a very good medical facility that speaks to issues with our health around here. We're glad to have them. With the proven reputation as a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility, Rinstar Medical Research brings cutting-edge clinical research trials to Ocala in areas like Alzheimer's disease, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, and fibromyalgia, along with many other conditions that affect our community. Since its inception in 1998, Rinstar has participated in more than 700 clinical trials and have been looking for answers to questions about your health for quite some time. They participated in, as I said, 700 and continue to partner with prominent pharmaceutical companies to bring better information about our health and how to treat it throughout the medical industry. So check them out. Go to Rinstar. You can actually be a part of these clinical trials if you like. Go to rinstar.net and tell them that you want to know more about them and maybe be a part of them, and then tell them that you'd like to join in. So, all right. So Rinstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. All right. I played a bite from Billy Napier's press conference earlier, but I'm going to put it back on part of it because I want you to hear the first part of his program, and then we'll talk to David soon. Here's Billy's press conference earlier today.
Okay, we tell you we've had some
David
really unique opportunities here.
Did you go to sleep?
In the last couple of days to invite some really important people. You guys know that.
Okay.
This weekend we're saluting those who serve, right? And yesterday we had Gunnery Sergeant Trey James from the Marines, and today we had Captain Tom Rich from the Air Force. Both come and speak to the team a little bit at the end, and certainly trying to create a perspective for the players, a certain level of gratitude. These people chose a career path. They serve. They protect our freedoms, and I think sometimes we take those for granted. So I think there's a lot that we can learn from these special people. So it's been pretty awesome to hear from them. I know it's impacted our players and staff in a positive way. So 2 good days' work here. Really pleased with the focus and the energy that I see. And we're right in the middle of prep here. We need to continue to work hard all the way up until we kick this thing off at 4. So senior day this weekend, we look forward to honoring that group. I think we've got 18 guys and a really solid group in that regard. So what questions we got here?
We'll just open it up, guys. Billy, would you talk about the fact that you controlled the ball for like 37 minutes against the Aggies and how impactful that is to your defense, being able to do that and moving forward, being able to do it again?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of things contribute to that, right? I think their ability to get off the field as well, right? I think time of possession, there's been games where we've been on the other end of that, right? So our ability to sustain drives and their ability to get the other team off the field. I mean, I think we're starting to play some complementary ball, time of possession, turnover margin. There's definitely areas where we need to improve, but we're still searching for that complete game, where we play well in all three parts of our team for all four quarters. We put together a good quarter, a good half. Certainly hopeful down the stretch here that we can put it all together.
How would you evaluate the team's perimeter blocking so far this season? It seems like you guys have had a couple of wide receivers make some impact plays outside.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a huge part of what we do. That and we're either blocking the perimeter or we're controlling the perimeter with the throws, right? So, but no question, if you're going to play receiver here, you're going to block. It's just part of the job. If you don't want to block, you can come stand by me, But, I think KC does a great job. I think we all understand the importance of that. You play receiver the majority of the game, you're not going to have the ball, right? So always like to say how you play without the ball in offense is a direct reflection of what type of teammate you are. And I think those guys do a terrific job. And certainly something they take great pride in, and it's impacted our team for sure.
Shane Beamer teams are, have a lot of gadget plays on special teams. They do a lot, and they really excel in that area. How mindful are you of that, and how much can you prepare for those kind of things?
Yeah, they're number one in the league in, field position differential, right? So they've certainly done a great job, not only covering kicks but returning kicks, and they fake. They've got a gauntlet of fakes that you've got to prepare for. So without question, Pete Limbo does a good job. He's a fantastic coach, and certainly Coach Beamer and his dad and their history there with special teams. It's part of competing against this team is the special teams part for sure.
Coach, you talk about making sure your team is starting to really play that complementary football. How is it for you guys to make sure that you finish these last three games strong and not have a drop-off performance?
No, I don't think we think in that regards. We got a lot of individuals that are working, trying to improve their best. I think we're very much a team of individuals, not only players but staff members that are trying to do it better than we've ever done it before. And the collective effort of that, I think you've seen certain parts of our team improve and the team improve as a whole. So we're
there he is. His thoughts. He's right. There are a collective bunch of individuals trying to become a team, and so we've got David Moulton online now. Let's go right to the hotline in the Orange and Blue Room and tell you he's sponsored by our friends at over at we played the spot earlier, Titan MRI, and David is a much traveling man. He must be tired because he goes all over the place. I mean, he's always on an airplane. I don't think he really knows where he is half the time. David Moulton, do you know where you are tonight?
I do. I'm in Jacksonville.
Ah, the boy. It's not a good place to be right now either, is it?
No, I think we're lucky. I think we're lucky. I think the guts of it is going to be about an hour and a half south.
Well, that's good. Not that it matters. I remember when I first moved to Jacksonville the first week back in 91. We had a big storm, a hurricane headed there. We were staying in a hotel. We said, we'll just go to the hotel and we'll be okay. We went to the hotel and slept through, woke up, and this Monster 5, big, huge hurricane hits Charleston the next day. And it wiped Charleston out. We were so stupid. We slept through the night there thinking, we'll be all right, You know how it is. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah, and you need a little luck with these suckers, as we all know.
Yeah. At Cone will drive you crazy. Look at it. So, the coast got a lot of damage up there today, what I saw tonight. That shoreline is getting eaten alive now. Boy, I wish everybody the best. It's kind of a wacky hurricane. I've never once seen one quite like that, where it kind of circles around and comes back. So, yeah, I'm not really sure. So I got notice, Tom Clinker says, hey, buddy, we're watching live for once, he's usually overseas. So waiting on Hurricane Nicole. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Oh, David, we're getting down to the end here, and we've talked about this a whole bunch, and we've even kind of peeked around the corner a few times, and we talked about it a little bit last week. But it is I like to dream. Like I said, I'm a dreamer, kind of. I like to think what's the max possible. And tomorrow I'm interviewing Coach Spurrier about his 92 and 97 teams, neither of which won championships, but were very good teams. They won 9 or 10 games. And your best teams don't always win championships, but you have a better chance, obviously, if you do. So now this team is, I hate to use this as a paragon of success, but this team will be bowl eligible by beating South Carolina. Is that anything, David?
Yeah, I mean, if you can finish fairly strong to a season, I mean, Buddy, in theory, can't they go 9-4, right?
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, a 9-4 finish would be tremendous, and I think they're going to finish 8-5. I think they're going to beat South Carolina. Right now, I would take the Noles against the Gators. And the spread came out today. It's or yesterday. It's right now it's 7.
Mm-hmm.
But with the way last season ended, and let's face it, the recruiting game, finishing strong is important.
Napier was asked about that today. He kind of sidestepped it because he
sidesteps most things.
Well, I mean, coaches do that. It's difficult.
Right,
I don't think he was really trying to be tricky here. I think coaches get caught up in their own effort of trying to concentrate. I know there's certain things I can't do when I'm doing another, and it takes more concentration sometimes. And I think what you're talking about is, well, gosh, what if you win 8 games and get 9? And they're thinking, dude, I'm trying to beat Carolina right now. That's kind of how coaches think, right?
Well, and the other thing is, I understand why he doesn't really want to answer the question, because if he says, hey, we're trying to finish 9-4 and you finish 7-6, and then we in the media will then question you about it. And so I get it. He's trying to lower expectations. He's just trying to do the 1 week at a time thing. And, I mean, let's face it, if they beat South Carolina, they're going to carry a 3-game winning streak into the Florida State game. And then, okay, now you have a chance. I mean, I think we placed the over-under at 7.5 when the season started, right?
Yeah, you and I thought they might make they go over 7, maybe. It'd be a really good year if they did, right?
Right, and I think you had them at 8, and I had them at 7.
Yeah,
and 7-5 isn't the difference between 8-4 and 7-5 to me is noticeable.
Well,
I mean, it is.
It is
7-5 because then you start looking and going, well, look at some of the gimme wins they put on their schedule. I mean, this is really against Division 1A Power 5 programs. I mean, is this even a 500 team? Meanwhile, you go 8-4. You finish with a 4-game winning streak. You run the table in November with a roster that's going to face heavy turnover. You can sell that.
Well, and the teams you lost to are all ranked.
Exactly. Right. And you beat a top 15 team. So you can sell that.
Yeah, you can build on that a little bit. I go back to that Georgia game still. I think that third quarter was really pivotal. Well, they found something there. They got it to a 1-score game. I know we don't talk about moral victories and all that, but you do have to have building blocks. And there was a building block there because they responded to the situation.
Well,
they weren't good enough to do anything about it because they couldn't get the Bojo working. And Georgia's defense pretty much shut them down in the fourth quarter. But they came fighting back, and that's what you have to have, a team that's willing to fight back. And that's what we saw second half last week out at College Station.
Agreed. They've played a couple of good second halves here, and that's important. Also, I like the fact they've played a couple of really good third quarters. That's adjustments. That's a good sign. Let's face it. There's a lot of these guys are fighting for roster spots next year. Let's be brutally honest. We got 18 people we're going to honor, and then the rest, you're fighting for everything. You're fighting for your roster,
Yeah.
your scholarship, and PT.
Yeah, and he said tonight also in his presser how someone asked him about the development of a player, and he made it a point to say there's a quantum leap, I'm using my words, about a guy in his second year. If he's played a full year, and his second year, all of a sudden you'll see him develop real fast. And now he's got some guys with a year under their belt. It's a pretty young team if you look at it. We still don't know about the transfer. We know there'll be some. There's supposed to be a big announcement tomorrow. And when Hugh Hathcock makes an announcement, it usually involves money. And he's saying it's going to be a big day for Gators. So what that is going to be, I don't know. I know that I wish he shut up John Ruiz down in Miami. What a jerk that guy is. That's going well for Miami. His money really helped that cause a lot.
Well, in fairness, though, I mean, he's forked over the money, but the guys they're bringing in, they sign them. They don't even arrive till next year. Okay.
In fairness, he ran his mouth a lot.
Well, yeah,
but that's tacky. It's tacky.
Well, buddy, if you're spending that kind of money, you want a return on your investment.
No, but not the way he's. You listen to him. I heard what his comments were, and ripping on the Gators and whatever. And,
no. That part was not cool. That part was not cool. But trying to get some publicity for yourself when you spend that kind of money. I mean, that part of the game I understand.
Well, I understand. I just don't have to like it, which I don't. I hope Hugh Hathcock never becomes that guy. Anyway, so you're back to the deal that when you start thinking, okay, now I don't want to be caught up in fool's gold like we were after Utah. This is the way it was over against a banged up Texas A&M team. Although I don't really care about that because you still got to perform and execute, and they did that. And they've done it now. No turnovers now, 3 straight games. Those kind of things matter. And so now they have a team they can beat, 2 teams in a row they can beat and should beat. And then they got FSU. We'll see how that goes down in Tallahassee, how competitive that game's going to be. So I think Billy has had a measure of progress there that he needed real bad. And you can see that almost a relief of the pressure on his face a little bit, can't you?
Yeah. Also, let's face it. Florida right now, you got to compare them to Georgia. And I believe Kirby's first year was 7-5, which was a step back from what he inherited from the Mark Richt, who got fired in 2015. And Kirby's first year in 2016 was kind of status quo and wins and losses, almost even a half a step back. And, Florida can't afford any half a steps back right now. And when you're chasing the best program in the country, I mean, that's the first time, really, buddy, in our lifetimes we could even say that. Because even when they had Herschel from 80 through 82, I mean, Herschel made them what they were. They were a good program with a transcendent player when the game was played differently than it is now. I mean, a tailback could change, much like a quarterback can change a team. A tailback in 1980 could dramatically change your program. And then once Herschel was gone, they went from being an elite national championship program to a very good program. They won the SEC, I think, in 83, and then without Herschel. But then after that, they were just a good program. And so, Billy's chasing the best program in the country right now.
What happened to that Herschel guy? What happened to that Herschel guy? Is he around?
Well, we'll find out in a month.
Yeah. Sorry for
I did ask a bunch of Georgia people in Athens last week because you've been in the press box there, and needless to say, there's a lot of Herschel Walker pictures and memorabilia. And I did jokingly ask, I go, if he wins, are you going to change all this stuff to say Senator Herschel Walker? Okay. And they said, probably not, but unless, of course, he asks.
Yeah. They'll build another statue of him. Yeah, for sure. Well, anyway, that was quite a win by Georgia. They just sure put Tennessee to bed. And not so much that Tennessee's not out of it. Were you surprised that Tennessee was ranked 5th in last night's rankings?
No, I think I don't see how you could put them anywhere else, to be brutally honest. I mean, if we're ranking one-loss teams, I would think they would have to be at the top of the one-loss list. Now, my question though, buddy, is I could see where TCU loses to Texas and Tennessee moves into the top 4, but I also could see when it's all said and done that Tennessee gets slid back to 5. I think if Oregon runs the table, that Oregon will finish ahead of Tennessee. I still believe, I don't know anyone else in the country that does, I still believe Clemson can run the table. And it would be very interesting, a 12-1 conference champion Clemson or 11-1 Tennessee, as to who would get the 4 spot, because you could see the committee saying, well, Tennessee's already had their shot. Let's give Clemson theirs. So I think all the way down, and what happens if Ole Miss wins out, including beating Georgia and winning the SEC title?
How about
Can they
LSU?
move all the way? And LSU, clearly the committee, by putting them at 7 ahead of a bunch of one-loss schools, has said we are prepared to make them the first 2-loss team to make the playoff.
And by the way, it's not the team that necessarily has the best record. The team playing the best football right now. And by that standard, I think LSU measures up. Now, and not only that, it's really kind of academic, because either Ohio State or Michigan are going to get beat, so they're going to drop out, right? TCU is no gimme. Texas could knock them off this week.
They're 7. I mean, Texas is a 7-point favorite for what it's worth,
Yeah,
and I
right.
think
I mean, yeah.
would be an underdog the next week against Baylor.
Right. So then you get to Tennessee, and then Oregon. I'm not quite the believer in Oregon. Everybody, I get it. Bo Nix is playing great. I know they're got to have steam, and he's done a terrific job. But the fact is, they did get absolutely crushed by Georgia. Let's don't forget that. I mean, really crushed.
They did.
And that's a bad loss. So anyway, we'll see how that. I don't get too excited about the standings right now. You mentioned a couple. We ended up having FSU 23rd. We got Utah now dropping to 13th. The Ole Miss is 11. And so Alabama now 9. Wow, that's a long drop for the. They're pretty much out of it. I don't see a path for them to get back in.
No, I don't see a path for Alabama. I see a path for Clemson, even though they're 10th right now, and I see a path for Ole Miss, who's 11, and I actually see a path for UCLA at 12. Buddy, a game that could be big is USC Notre Dame. Could be big in a couple
Given
weeks.
Notre Dame's performance last week, I guess that's true.
And now they're back in it at 20. And so also think of the ramifications. If Notre Dame keeps winning and finishes strong, that could help Ohio State if they lose the showdown with Michigan. It also could help USC. I mean, what if USC wins out here? I mean, think about it. They'd have to beat UCLA, they'd have to beat Notre Dame, and they'd have to beat Oregon. I mean, look, if USC goes 12-1, they're in the playoff.
They're still a Pac-12 team, no matter what it is, though.
But I think they'd be in the playoff. I really do.
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
Well,
maybe.
I mean, think about it, buddy.
Who are you going to knock out?
Well, I'm just saying that when Tennessee moves into the top 4, when TCU loses, I'm just saying I think there's a Pac-12 team, whichever one of the 3 it is. If they run the table and post to 12-1, I think they would jump Tennessee.
If Tennessee doesn't beat Alabama, Tennessee doesn't beat Georgia in the playoffs, SEC championship game.
Well, they can't go. Obviously, Georgia will represent the East, and Tennessee will be an 11-1.
That's true.
Non-conference
That's right.
champion. The same thing with the loser of Ohio State, Michigan.
I didn't mean that. What I meant about it, if what I really meant to say was, now that Alabama's pretty much out of it, although they could still play and win the SEC West, I think the West looks to me like it could be LSU. Do you think so?
Well, buddy, the West could be won by 7 o'clock Saturday. If LSU beats Arkansas and Alabama beats Ole Miss, it's over. LSU has won the West.
Yeah, what if LSU now beats Georgia? They go. Then what happens to Georgia?
Well, I think Georgia is the one team that could be 12. Like, of the 2, if it's Georgia or let's just say it's Ohio State, because first of all, Georgia would face a much better team in the conference championship game than Ohio State or Michigan will. I
Right.
mean, think about, and we've never had this, I don't believe, since we've had the 14 playoff. We have not had the shocking conference championship game upset. But think about it, buddy. Ohio State or Michigan, whichever one wins the showdown, they're 12-0. They're in the Big Ten title game. They're going to be like damn near a 3-touchdown favorite. I mean, you lose that game. That's a tough one for the committee to say we still need to keep you in. If Georgia's 12-0 and they lose to, let's just say LSU, particularly if they're a 10-2 LSU,
Right. They could survive it.
I think because they'll be like a 9 to 10 point favorite. They'll probably be half the favorite that Ohio State or Michigan will be in the conference title game.
Yeah.
And I think Georgia's win over Tennessee, as resounding as it was, much more resounding than the final score, and as we found out yesterday, highest rated game of the regular season so far. Nearly 14 million people saw the game. Now, I think Ohio State, Michigan's going to beat it in a couple weeks. But, basically the committee saw Georgia absolutely dominate Tennessee. I think if Georgia gets to Atlanta 12-0, they can lose and stay in the playoff.
Good stuff. And I want to just give you one last question. And that is, of all the coaches in trouble, Jeff Scott was fired. My gosh, he was 4-26. He should be fired a long time ago. These four guys, I know money figures into it, but I'm not going to say which one gets fired first because I think that makes it different. Who's in the most trouble? Ready? Brent Venables, Kirk Ferentz, Mario Cristobal, or Jimbo Fisher?
Well, I don't believe Ferentz or Cristobal are in any trouble. I don't. I think Kirk Ferentz gets to call a shot in Iowa. So it basically comes down to Jimbo and who was the first? Oh, Venables at Oklahoma.
Pretty bad.
It's
train wreck. Got a dumpster fire and all that.
There's no question. I think the fact that it's year one works in his favor. They can make a bunch of excuses for him. This is a tough one for Jimbo to write off. And let's be honest, the Texas A&M boosters are a half a step away from Auburn. When they want to do something, they can do it. They've got the money. Now, I don't think any of the four are going to get fired, but, of the four, I would think the best shot is actually Jimbo.
Really? Wow, 85
Yeah,
million.
see, I don't think – here's the thing that's working in Venables' favor. It would be so humiliating for all those Oklahoma people who gave the collective middle finger to Lincoln Riley as he was leaving, and they said, we are far bigger than you. You weren't that great, blah, blah, blah. And they brought in one of their own in Venables. I don't think they can eat that much crow this quickly.
Yeah, it'd be tough. It would be very, very tough. David Moulton, by the way, brought to you by Titan MRI. Worth a short drive to Gainesville, no insurance, no problem. Pay with cash or cards, same day scheduling available. Start feeling better today. Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent MRI facility. David, thank you so much. Good stuff. Appreciate it very much. Where are you going to be this weekend?
Headed to Oxford.
Alabama.
Alabama Ole Miss, which would have been. This is the type of game, buddy, for better or worse. This is the type of game when 2 to 4 years from now we're at 12, where this would be a really big game because this would essentially be an elimination game.
Yeah.
Winner would probably be in the playoff, and the loser would all but certainly be out of it.
Yeah, you're right.
In fact, if you look at this week's schedule, imagine we have a 12-team playoff. There are a lot of games that would have huge meaning this week if we had a 12-team playoff.
And that says it right there about why it's important to have that 12-team playoff and why it makes these games so much more meaningful, not to mention the millions of dollars of cash they would raise. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. And once again, college football, dragging their feet again.
Now, buddy, Georgia, Tennessee might not get 13 million viewers 2 to 4 years from now. People would go, wow, it's a hell of a showdown. And really what they'd be playing for is seeding. That one of them would be a top 4 seed and the other one would be seeded 5 through 8 and get a home playoff game. I still hope, by the way, that they figure out a way to get the 1 through 4 seeds to get a bye and a home game. But, the damn Bulls,
Yeah. But the Bulls are what got SEC where it is, so let's be honest about it.
But you know what, buddy? We're past that.
No, I know we are, but again, all credit, I will say to them that hadn't been for that, we never would have seen the BCS, and who knows if we'd ever damn playoff by now. So at least they had that. But I'm with you. I don't like it. So, David,
how about,
go ahead.
Well,
no, you go. Go.
No, we'll have plenty of time. I just think it's a little weird that they basically trying to say the bye is more valuable than the home playoff game.
Yeah.
And to win a national title, to only have to win 3 games as opposed to 4.
It's a big advantage. It's a big advantage.
It is. But, buddy, let's be honest. Most of the decisions in this sport are made around what? Money. Okay? And so to look like the difference between being the 4 seed and the 5 seed, the 5 seed actually gets a home playoff game. That's millions of dollars. I mean, if you were to secretly blindfold ADs and say, which would you rather be, the 4 seed?
Blind resume,
yeah. A lot of them would check, I'd rather be the 5 seed. Jack Swarbrook in Notre Dame said it a year ago when this was first proposed. He said, I'd rather, they're like, well, since you're not in a conference, you can't win a conference championship and be a top 4 seed. And he's like, that's okay. We'll take the home game. We're good.
Well, there you go. If these ADs would quit firing coaches for $80 million, they'd have more money. So there you go. My goodness. David, have a great week. Don't forget to listen to David Moulton. Moulton in the morning. Is it 6 or 7 a.m.? I always forget.
Oh, buddy, it's 6 a.m.
Oh, man, go to bed.
I know.
I remember I used to get. I couldn't go out past 8 o'clock when I was doing 6 a.m. It's brutal, man. I appreciate you being on there. We'll start taping in a second. Give you a little rest.
That's fine.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you, buddy.
I will be asleep. I will be asleep in 6 to 8 minutes.
Okay, I won't call you back. All right, my friend. Good night. Thank you very much. Good stuff. The great David Moulton bringing us all the good news that he usually does. And he has a lot of game. All right, so folks, I want to wrap this up and say once again, happy birthday to my grandson. Thank you for sticking it out tonight. Thanks to my friend George Solomon. Thanks to David. Thanks to all of our friends and neighbors. And back tomorrow night with our Orange and Blue Bloods show with Ben, and probably a big announcement tomorrow. Bob Redman will join us, and then Franz Beard, the Iron Duke. Have a great night, folks. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. Back tomorrow night. Tell your friends and neighbors. Buddy Martin Show's back one more time.